Yesterday, Clay Travis of Outkick made this comment about Nebraska that we're in the wrong conference. And he goes on to say we should be in the SEC, which is really just bizarre, I think, because I have never considered us an SEC school. I never considered, even with all these changes, he pointed out, wouldn't Nebraska feel better about playing Texas and Missouri and Texas A&M's, because we played them in the Big 12. Sorry, I'm trying to get this camera straight. I have no idea where this comes from, but it does point out this idea that Nebraska is in the wrong conference. And that's what I'm going to talk about this morning, because for the past, over a decade that Nebraska's been in the Big Ten and not had success at football, we have gotten constant comments. I still get them. I did my Michigan reaction and there was the comment, we should go back to the Big 12. Because the idea is that we would be, if we went back to the Big 12, it'd be easier and we'd be winning. And that's bullshit. It really is. Number one, it's an insult to the Big 12 and the teams in it. And number two, it completely misses the problem that Nebraska's had. Really since the retirement of Tom Osborne. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. And it really comes, remember the Big Ten West, there's people been making up ideas or reasons why we've failed. Now, one of them was recruiting. Well, they lost their base of recruiting because they used to recruit so well from Texas and Oklahoma. Well, that's a bullshit statement, because when we were in the Big Ten West, remember that one, where nobody was really ever that good, but somebody had to win it, and Nebraska didn't take advantage of not very good teams we were playing as opponents. We out-recruited everybody for pretty much the 10 years that the Big Ten West was around. Recruiting was never our problem. At least out-recruiting our peers. Out-recruiting like an Ohio State or Penn State, yeah, that's an issue. But we couldn't even beat like teams like Minnesota and Iowa and Northwestern, the quadrangle of hate constantly. So recruiting wasn't an issue. The issue that Nebraska has had since the retirement of Tom Osborne is personnel. It's just been people. That's it. Because everybody likes to focus down on one issue causing the problem. It's been people. It's always been people, right? There's a lot of you to say, well, they should have never fired Frank Solich. Well, Frank would have gotten fired anyway, sooner or later, because for one reason, he isn't Tom Osborne. Sorry. Kalen DeBoer took over for Nick Saban at Alabama. He's going to get fired because he's not Nick Saban. It's just as simple as that. Now, let's go through it. Okay. I think Frank was a good coach. He wasn't Tom Osborne. And some guy who was a megalomaniac used his ego to fire Frank after a 9-3 season. We know this. It's an unbelievably stupid move because he didn't have a plan in place when he fired Frank. And then he brought in Bill Callahan. So would Frank have succeeded? I don't think so. I think we would have sooner or later would have said, even if you remove Steve, that idiot, from the picture, I would have liked to see Frank get more time with his coaches that he brought in, including when Bo Pelini is defensive coordinator, to see if he could do better. But probably Frank, sooner or later, wouldn't have been Tom Osborne. We would have had to fire him. But we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to wait for that because a megalomaniac took care of that for us and brought in Bill Callahan. Now, there's a lot of people that say, well, Bill Callahan might have been successful. He wouldn't have had a defensive coordinator in Kevin Cosgrove that knew how to defend the zone read. And that's a bullshit statement, too, because Bill Callahan's problems were he couldn't lead. After he left Nebraska, he's still one of the best offensive line coaches in probably history. But he couldn't lead. Whenever things got tough, he literally do the equivalent of deflect or hide under his desk. That's not a leader. That's not a guy that's going to be successful as being your head guy. And then Bill Callahan went, and what do we get? We got Sean Eichhorst and Bo Pelini, right? I hope I'm doing this right. And then what happens there? Well, Bo Pelini gets fired after a 9-3 season. There's a lot of people that say, well, Bo Pelini stuck around and we'd stay in the Big 12, we'd still be winning. I saw that comment this morning. In fact, no, we wouldn't have. Number one, Bo, again, fired after 9-3 season by an idiot who apparently didn't know history because he didn't look back and go, wow, everybody got mad after that guy being fired for a 9-3 season. I think I'll do it again. Sean Eichhorst was not a stellar athletic director. From everything I know about him, he worried way too much about regulations and being sued than he did about the performance of his sports teams. And, that's kind of dumb. It's really kind of dumb. Bo probably in another year or two would have failed and he would have had to been fired. And what I base that on is his recruiting was going to pot. I'll give you an example. Ndamukong Suh was a generational player. He was easily one of the best players in college football history. And you as a program would usually take that player and say, look what we did for him. And then you'd recruit, Nebraska should have become defensive tackle U. Bo never took advantage of that. He never wanted to recruit. He complained about he couldn't recruit in Nebraska, that it was too hard and stuff. And his recruiting was going downhill if you watch the end of it. The other problem that Bo had is that, whenever we played actual good opponents, we'd get destroyed. And then people would go, well, do you think you need to change your defense? Well, there's nothing wrong with my defense. Well, you know what? If you're going to be good, that's fine. Bo was a good coach. Was he above average? Yeah, probably. But he wouldn't change. And that's what's required to go from good to great to legend. To be great and then go to legend. That's what's required, is you look at your blind spots that everybody has and you say, what can I do to make up for this blind spot? And Bo's unwillingness to change anything was a massive blind spot. And ultimately, he's not coaching anymore. Went to Youngstown State, went back to LSU. I don't know what he's doing now. It's not like we stay in touch. But he was gonna fail. But we didn't have to. The thing with Sean Eichhorst is he should have waited for Bo to fail and then fired him. Because then Sean Eichhorst looks like an idiot because he was an idiot. Again, personnel. And again, with Bo personnel. And again, there's this fallacy that we would have kept winning in the Big 12 when we wouldn't have, because we have people problems, and then after Bo, you have Mike Riley. And if you think Mike Riley would have won in any conference with Nebraska, at the level that we demand, I don't know what to tell you. And and then we have Scott Frost, the guy that didn't really ever want to be in Nebraska, but he was too apparently okay with committing fraud and taking a salary until he got a massive buyout to do anything about it other than whine and blame everybody else for his problems. So for the past, since Tom Osborne's retirement, it's been people, it's been personnel, it's nothing to do with who we play as opponents. It has nothing to do with recruiting, and that whole world has changed anyway. Where, the whole idea that you can't recruit now because you don't have as much money as that guy over there. That's going to be the problem that everybody's facing. Wisconsin's probably in a lot of trouble because of that. There are a lot of schools that Oklahoma State just fired Mike Gundy. There are going to be a lot of schools that are not going to be able to compete anymore because they don't have the money to buy a roster. I think that's very sad. I really do. I think it's going to, ultimately to the destruction of college football. People will break off, form their own thing, which might be best, for the long term of this. Whether or not Nebraska should follow them or stay with a college football format where people, I don't know, maybe don't pay as much nil. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe that's a conversation for another video. But the idea that Nebraska doesn't belong in the Big Ten it's bullshit. We just have to keep going until we find the guy who really isn't going to be Tom Osborne. Okay, because Tom Osborne was a legend, and he had Milt Tenopir and Charlie McBride, two legendary coaches that were willing to stay with him throughout his career and build a legendary program. And legends, the reason why they're legends is they don't just show up. They just not like picking up this blade of grass right here and going, "Well, you're a legend." Wait, no, I'm just like you. That's not how it works. I'm not sure if there's anything else to say. Do you really want Nebraska to go back to the Big 12? I don't think so. Come on. Just stop lying to yourself. The one thing that bothers me about being sports commentating and being, dealing with comments and stuff like that is that people they're not honest with themselves. And, that we gloss things over, or we fail to, and honestly, we fail to recognize our own blind spots. Kind of Trev Alberts probably would have been a good athletic director, except that his blind spot, his ego, got the best of him. And he wanted, he made up some bullshit statement about leadership, but really what he wanted to do was be known for this big stadium renovation, and then he could go off and be a college football commissioner or some damn thing. And he ends up going to Texas A&M, where he's never going to make his own decisions ever. I have no idea what the hell he was thinking, because literally other people will be telling him what to do at Texas A&M forever. And he's already kind of on the hot seat down there. So, again, not the best people. Do we have the best people now? Perhaps that's a discussion in the comments. I think Troy Dannon looks like he's a pretty good athletic director. Matt Rule, remains to be seen. I'm sure we have attitudes about that. We just lost to Michigan, so we have 2 weeks of being really angry about everything. And then maybe we'll beat Michigan State, and by God, he'll be the best coach on the planet. I know it bothers people. He has a podcast and he talks a lot, but I don't know what you expect of coaches today. Like they're supposed to live in their office. Tom Osborne had a show on TV. He did. Bob Devaney had a show on TV. He did. Everybody loved those shows. You remember those? But, having a podcast, who gives a shit? That's not what's keeping Nebraska from winning. All right. I need to get going. I heard people screaming at me because I have I have SSL certificates expiring. I have a mail systems having problems. I have storage issues somewhere else. I got to get to shit. But I thought I'd take some time and do another one of these. I'll probably keep doing them, like I said. I hope you're having a good day, and God bless, and take care of yourself.